Welcome back to Ion Foxborough. I'm Chris Mason here with Mark Daniels. Draft week is finally upon us. The draft starts Thursday night. The Patriots going to be a transformative weekend for them, one way or the other in Detroit. Mark, how you feeling about draft week?
I'm ready for it to be here, Chris. I'm ready to know who the Patriots' next quarterback is because as I said in our last podcast, I'm 100% guaranteeing they're drafting a quarterback. I'm moving that percentage up though, or I'm going to say 99% they are drafting a quarterback in the first round. Now I'm leaving 1% chance it doesn't happen, but I'm up to 99% now. Patriots drafting a quarterback in round one, so I'm ready for it to happen.
There we go. So on this pod, we're going to do a little exercise where we go through like best Patriots fits in the first three rounds, kind of do our own big board. But we're actually going to start with a report from Adam Schefter this morning. Mark, you want to tell the people what Schefter had to say?
Yeah, so Adam Schefter is reporting that it would take a big offer for the Patriots to move down, which we all sort of know. And he drops that the Vikings are a team that have attempted to move up or want to move up. And as many have reported, the Minnesota Vikings want Drake May. Adam Schefter essentially says many are waiting to see how the Patriots value Drake May versus JJ McCarthy and whether the Patriots can make a play like the Arizona Cardinals did a year ago when the Cardinals traded down in the first round, but then traded back up. Schefter finishes this off with saying if the Patriots opt to trade out at number three, they could follow a similar path as Arizona to get the quarterback they covet, aka Chris. If the Patriots trade down with Minnesota to number 11, they have to trade back up because they need to draft a quarterback. We're getting a bit messy here, man. My first thought is there is a lot of ways to mess this up, Elliot. There's a lot of ways you could hurt yourself and get fired. But man, if they hypothetically trade out of three, trade back up, and get their quarterback, bravo. But man, that is a lot of things that need to go right.
That would be a really, really impressive threading of the needle by Elliot Wolf in his first draft that he's ever running. So I don't know. I mean, it does seem really complicated. Ultimately, if they decide that they really like JJ and they think they can move down and still get him, I guess that makes sense. But that would have to mean that they really don't like Drake May at number three, right?
Right. So break it down like this. If you were to trade down with Minnesota, you're getting 11 and 23, but you're probably getting two to three more first round picks, right? So, like, hypothetically, you get 4 to 5 first round picks. You drop down to 11, Chris. You then have to take those 4 or 5 first round picks and give them to Arizona or LA if you want JJ McCarthy, because the number for 4 or 5, the reason you need to get there at 6, the Giants could take JJ McCarthy. And in my mind, if the Patriots value JJ McCarthy and they think they can trade down to get him, you can't get past 6 there because the Giants are a threat because they need a quarterback. So, like, does it make sense to acquire all these first round picks and then use them and maybe come away with an extra one or two? Maybe if you can do it. But I'm going to throw one hypothetical at you that I kind of like. What if the Patriots want a veteran player? Now, Justin Jefferson is a no-brainer. If they can get Justin Jefferson for 11, 23, and another draft pick, great. Get him and then trade for JJ McCarthy, golden. But what if it's a tackle? What if it's Christian Darrisaw, their left tackle? And like you get extra first round picks, you get a left tackle, but then you use the extra first round picks to get JJ McCarthy. I could get behind something like that because you're knocking out two needs. So like if they could get a veteran, get extra picks, but then use the extra picks to get JJ McCarthy, I would be for it. That would be an insane thing for Elliot Wolf to do. But like for me, it would be insane to do this, right? Like we're not talking safe here, Chris. This is really, really risky.
No, and some of it comes down to too, like why does Minnesota want to trade their left tackle if they're drafting a rookie quarterback at that spot and they're not going to be picking high in the second round? So it's not like you can get a guy right there either. Ultimately, I don't see them parting with left tackle or a Justin Jefferson type. I think it's going to be based on picks. The one thing I would say is like, I'm not convinced the Giants would take McCarthy at 6. That's something that's been out there a lot. But even with like, it'd be one thing if it was Drake May who was falling, where he gets the Josh Allen comps all the time. Everybody in the world knows what Brian Dable did with Josh Allen in Buffalo. Like if that was happening, I would get it. But I don't really see the McCarthy to the Giants at 6. And it's floated in so many mocks and everything, but I don't see that as an obvious fit there. And especially as like, Dable's in year 3 there, they might be scrambling to save jobs. I don't think drafting a next quarterback is really going to prolong that if they're bad with Daniel Jones again. And especially if it's JJ McCarthy, who isn't the high ceiling guy that Josh Allen was or Drake May projects to be.
What the Giants should do is draft a receiver because they're in a position where they could get a top three receiver. And in this draft, there were three guys who profile as number one receivers. You're the Giants. It makes way more sense to do that. That being said, if the Giants want to go from 6 to 3, go for it. I'm like I've said this before. The Patriots want to trade down to 6 and draft JJ McCarthy, and he's your guy, then do it. If you can get an extra, what it is, a first round pick or an extra second, and you still get your quarterback, fine. There's risk here, and I think we should jump into like our big board because Chris, I think me and you feel the same way. In my opinion, for the Patriots, my own Mark Daniels big board, Drake May is at the top for me. He's a prototypical, pocket passer who has the ability to run out of the pocket. He's athletic like Josh Allen, sort of Josh Allen light to a sense. Drake May's profile is at his best, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, right? Whereas JJ McCarthy, his comps are like Alex Smith,
Alex Smith.
Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins. And I get that he might be safer. People think he has a higher floor than Drake May. But man, if I'm the Patriots, I swing for the fences. Drake May is a good athlete. He has an absolute cannon for an arm. He's tough. He's a good leader. He is smart. He is everything the Patriots have said they want in a prospect. So for the Patriots to move down and not draft Drake May, the risk is this. He turns into Josh Allen. You miss out on a potential game-changing quarterback. And if that happens, that is your legacy, Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo, that you passed on a franchise quarterback, man. That's why I feel like our big board, I put Drake May over Jaden Daniels. I just think he fits in what the Patriots really want. I mean, hell, look what Alex Van Pelt did with Joe Flacco. What can he do with Drake May over time? Man, I love the fit for the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm also pretty done with the like quote unquote safe pick after 3 years of Mac Jones, where he was supposed to be the safe pick. He was supposed to be the high floor guy, and we saw how low that floor can still get. So I am totally on board with rolling the dice on a Drake May. And one thing that I thought was interesting is the Vikings clearly do like him a lot. And I don't know if you guys saw this video, but Kevin O'Connell was doing a church thing. And the video came out Friday night. But one of the parishioners really started grilling him on like who the Vikings like at quarterback. And he like played along really well. The guy had a great scouting report in his question. I don't think O'Connell was expecting it all, but he gave a really good 2 minute answer on that essentially like spelled out without saying we really like Drake May. It basically said Minnesota really likes Drake May. But one of the things that he said, and he's supposed like former quarterback is supposed to be really good with quarterbacks, is that he believes footwork can be fixed. Like no matter who you are, no matter what level you're at, he thinks that you can fix a quarterback's footwork. And that's the biggest thing with Drake May's tape is that, sometimes the footwork gets a little wonky. He ends up missing the shorter throws because of it. Can you correct that at the next level? When O'Connell's adamant that that can be corrected, I think that's another endorsement that like, okay, yeah, like there are some inconsistencies on tape, but there are things that you can clean up at the next level.
Right. And like that's the thing for the Patriots. You get Drake May in here. And as we've reported, the Patriots are fine with drafting a quarterback and sitting him until he's ready. That's why they have Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett ran Alex Van Pelt's system. Jacoby could mentor Drake and start for the Patriots this year. And then honestly, you're probably better off for it in the long run. But I think it's obvious here too, like with the number 3 pick, like their options, Chris, for me, it's Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and then JJ McCarthy. I would draft JJ McCarthy over Marvin Harrison Jr. because you can't exit this draft, this first round without a quarterback. I think the Patriots know to get out of the hole they're in, they need a guy. So I think number 2 for me, my big board is it's easy. It's Jaden Daniels. It would be really exciting. The Patriots have said they want to weaponize their offense. Well, what better way to do that than get Jaden Daniels, who frankly could probably start right away. He's 24 years old. He's what 2, 3 years older than Drake May. His comp is Lamar Jackson slash Jalen Hurts, right? He's exciting. Like although it scares me about his like weight and
Yeah.
frame, especially when you factor in the New England weather. Having him though, Chris, would be a lot of fun, and you wouldn't necessarily have to sit him. I mean, from our standpoint, that would be an exciting offseason if it was Jaden Daniels and OTAs and minicamp and training camp.
Yeah. I think our big boards are the same at the top where I go May 1 for them. I think Daniels is 2. And like you said, I think he checks a lot of those boxes. I just like May a little bit better. But I don't have McCarthy at 3 on mine. I think from that point, if you stay at 3, I don't take McCarthy that high because I don't think the board's going to dictate that. I think you're overreaching there. I don't think that he is the like slam dunk. He should be taken at 3. There's a reason that he's further and further down all these prospect lists all the time. Like Daniel Jeremiah just updated his
Yep.
150, like 150 prospect rankings, and he has McCarthy down at 20th. I don't think that's a guy you take at number three just because you want a quarterback. And yes, quarterbacks always go higher than they're ranked because teams value them so highly. But honestly, at three, I'd probably go with a Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think they should make that pick. I think if they're in that spot, they should trade down, obviously, because they're teams that want to jump up. But I don't agree with taking McCarthy at three under pretty much any circumstances.
It would be wild. And I agree with you. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better prospect than JJ McCarthy. There's no, and it's like if like hypothetically, if they were to draft like say a Michael Penix, it's obviously not a three, right? I mean, you're gonna trade down, whether it be at 11 or trade back up to like 8 or something with the Falcons. Like, fine. If you want a Michael Penix, then trade down. I think that would be the riskiest thing. I would dislike it. I'm on record. I would dislike if they traded down and draft Michael Penix. You have like although JJ McCarthy would be a giant leap at three, and I agree with you, I would like that better than getting Michael Penix just because JJ McCarthy's 21, he's a winner, whatever. Like, give me Kirk Cousins over an injury risk and a Tua Tagovailoa type prospect.
Fair enough. Let's move to the second round. So in this spot, it's a little tougher to do the big board, right? Because you don't know who's going to be on the board. But I think ultimately with this, if the Patriots stay put and they're picking 34 overall, I think you really do let the board dictate where you go here. How do you see this breaking down?
Yeah, best case scenario was the guy you mocked to the Patriots today, Tyler Guyton. He's what, 6'7", left tackle from Oklahoma. I like Tyler Guyton a lot, Chris. If he was there, that's a no-brainer. I kind of don't think he's going to. I think, he's the guy who's probably going to sneak into the bottom of that first round. A lot of teams need tackles in the NFL, and this draft is pretty deep with them. So I think the best case scenario, you're looking at a tackle type prospect, Jordan Morgan, Arizona, Tyler Guyton. A guy I like from BYU is Kingsley Suamatia. He's a 6'4" left tackle. He's really athletic. His athletic traits are in line with the Patriots have done in the past. But you're right. What's interesting about their top pick in the second round, there could be some really good receivers there too. So I
Yeah.
think you look at, what's the best case scenario. I mean, the best case scenario is that my guy like Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, I like him a lot. I would love him at 34 for the Patriots. There was a report out today, though. He actually went on record and said the Carolina Panthers said, if you're on the board at 33, one spot ahead of the Patriots, we're taking you. So like Xavier Leggett would be amazing. You look at some of the other receivers,
I think
Keon Coleman. Yeah. So like
I
Keon
was
Coleman, Florida State, he's an ex receiver. He's another good guy that could factor in. So for the Patriots, dude, it's either receiver or tackle in the second round.
I think best case scenario for them in general is if Adonai Mitchell slips out of the first round, where he's another guy that like Dan Brugler for him and Guyton has first/second round grades on them. And they're guys that are mocked in the late 20s, early 30s a lot. If one of them slips into the second round, I think that's your slam dunk. I think Mitchell is the perfect like X receiver for this team. Uh, in that like that's the most obvious need. Like they need an X at receiver. I think it gets really weird if you have like the best tackles and receivers are off the board, then you have like Alad McConkey just bouncing around there still. Like he's not an X, but do you take him as the best receiver available if tackles aren't ready? I probably wouldn't do that, but a lot of this depends on the teams at the end of the first round.
And I'd argue too, if like there's a slot receiver there in the second or third, and you think they're an upgrade, I think you should just take them because the Patriots, even though I like Pop Douglas, if you can get someone better, like there's a guy we could talk about in the third round, Malachi Corley of Western Kentucky. His comp is Debo Samuel. I get it's redundant with Pop Douglas, Chris, but if he's Debo Samuel, I want him. I want to add something on Adonai Mitchell, which is really fascinating. So I subscribe to Go Long with it's a great site out there. And one of the Go Long writers is Bob McGinn, who covered the Packers for a long time. He does this scouting series where he quotes scouts and does draft rankings. The Adonai Mitchell report is not good, but it could be good for the Patriots. So here's the deal. I didn't know this. Adonai Mitchell is diabetic, and there were issues at Texas when he was not properly taking his medication. So I'm just going to read you this because this is just kind of nuts. He's a very boomer guy. He's been diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. Quote, you're going to have to assign someone to be next to him for his first few years because there are issues about his diabetes and blood sugar, said a second scout. When his blood sugar's off, he's rude, he's abrasive, he doesn't pay attention in meetings. It's why you get really bleep character reports coming out of Georgia and Texas. But when his stuff is normal and they get him normal by lunchtime, He's out at practice, high energy, best practice player, and loves football. There's a lot there to take in. So there are character concerns with Adonai Mitchell because he has diabetes and he has issues with his blood sugar. Wow. I read that, Chris, and I was like, this is a guy who could fall out of the first round, right? And this is a guy who I guess a bit risky. I was looking at an NFL comp for him, and it was essentially George Pickens, who out of Georgia had similar character issues with maturity, and we've seen him in Pittsburgh, but I just thought that was fascinating. And I agree. Second round, you want to roll the dice on Adonai Mitchell. If it hits, you're probably getting a number one receiver.
The Patriots also might be uniquely qualified to handle someone with like these type of like just needs hand holding a
Yeah,
lot of the time where like I think they've had a few guys come through the building in recent years that are similarly built, right? And they just need that guy with them all the time. Patriots have a huge staff and the resources to devote to, helping him along. And if it's something as simple as making sure the blood sugar is right, like you have these dietitians in the NFL, you have all this stuff. So, I mean, it'd be crazy if you fell out of the first round because of like the handling of diabetes, but I think
right.
that's a problem with an obvious solution, right?
Absolutely. So I think when you like look at their true needs, left tackle, X receiver. So for like second round best case scenario, Adonai Mitchell, Keon Coleman, Florida State is also an X receiver. And then for tackles, it's like Jordan Morgan, Arizona, Kingsley Suamataia, BYU, Tyler Guy in Oklahoma. Any of those five guys I'd be thrilled with because it fits an immediate need and they would profile as, an immediate starter, which is what the Patriots, honestly, they need. They need it in their first three rounds. They need, bang, bang, bang. They kind of have to hit these.
The one I'm not terribly sold on there is Jordan Morgan, where I don't know if he's gonna play tackle at the next level. Some people say he'll be better off as a guard.
Right.
The Patriots have kind of already lived that experience with Isaiah Wynn in that like miscast tackle guard thing. I'm not sure that that's another avenue that I'd want to go down at that spot, but if they see it differently and he's like the best player on their board, I could be talked into it. But that's a red flag to me right off the top is like if they don't think he has the size to play tackle and he's a better fit as a guard, is that really who you want to be like hitching your wagon to with a very high second round pick?
Yeah. So speaking of like, character concerns and, problems, Jermaine Burton, Alabama. Let's get to the third round. I mean, Jermaine Burton of Alabama he's a really talented outside receiver. He's an X receiver. It would fit in. Patriots draft him in the third round. I mean, honestly, you could get a guy who probably fell down boards because of character concerns. Bob McGinn's had him listed under quote scout's nightmare. Jermaine Burton, he's a legitimate deep threat. As a talent, he should be a day two selection. However, he's off at least two teams' boards for various character related issues and could face, quote, an agonizing drop in the draft. So, when we're talking about the third round, you're sitting there at the top. If you think Jermaine Burton has the talent to be a number one receiver, but he falls because of character concerns, maybe you roll the dice at the top of the third with an X receiver. But I also think it's an interesting place to be because there will be receivers available in the third. Will there be left tackles? And I want to throw some names out at you. Patrick Paul Houston has been a very popular prospect to mock to the Patriots. He's like a 6'8" tackle, but he's raw, which is why he might drop to the third round. There's Roger Rosengarten, Washington, another tackle, played left tackle at Washington for protecting Michael Penix, profiles as a right tackle. Blake Fisher, Notre Dame, is a guy I've mocked to the Patriots. He took an official visit to the Patriots. He's a projected third round tackle, profiles as a right tackle, but played some left tackle, at Notre Dame. And there's a kid out of Yale whose last name I can't pronounce. Basically is Kyron Ama something. He's incredibly athletic. He played in like 3 games last year for Yale. He's so athletic though. People think this kid from Yale could get drafted in the third round. So I mean, those would be, I think, if you could get a starting caliber tackle in the third round, hey, props to you. Probably not going to happen though. I feel like the third round could be prime for the Patriots to draft a receiver, and there are some interesting guys. One I mentioned was Malachi Corey, Chris. Again, his comp is Debo Samuel, and I get that he doesn't fit in need, but man, the Debo Samuel comp really makes me like him. I mean, Brandon Rice from USC is a guy who's Jerry Rice's son. He's an ex receiver. There's another one, Javon Baker, UCF.
Yep.
People think he's more of a fourth round prospect. He's like borderline third, fourth, but he's an ex receiver who the Patriots brought in for an official visit. I think the Patriots are in a spot, Chris, where they could land impact players at the second and third round, and they're really important picks.
Yeah, in the third round, I'd definitely be okay with rolling the dice on kind of a project. If that's Patrick Paul and he's there, I think, if you have a huge left tackle that needs more time, like, okay, I think you can do that. This is like 2024 is a rebuilding year. You know, there's no like need to win immediately. So like develop these guys. I'd be more apt to do that than like try and take a right tackle, which you don't really need. And then are you moving Onwenu to left tackle? Are you like, do you really want to move him again? Like, what are you going to do there? So I'd rather have like a raw like left tackle prospect there. But I think a lot of this too is going to be dictated by whichever one you pick in the second round, right? If you take tackle or wideout in the second round, then I think you're doing the opposite in the third, right? I
Yeah.
don't think you're going to double dip with the same position there back to back because you
No.
have the three obvious needs.
Here's an interesting one for you. Say the Patriots do with it what we want them to do and draft Drake May. Devontae Walker, Drake May's number one target at UNC. He's a considered a third or fourth round prospect. I would add him to the big board because you bring in a guy from North Carolina who, by the way, he's an X receiver, what you need, but
Mhm.
also he has a relationship with Drake May, the young quarterback. I mean, that honestly, I wouldn't hate that. I think that would be a pretty good pick.
Yeah, and it'd be fascinating to see where he would be on these boards if he was able to play a full season and didn't have the eligibility issues and that whole headache. But yeah, I think it makes all the sense in the world to bring one of May's college receivers along if he's the guy that you take at number three, right? You already have
Yeah.
some chemistry there and you can just build upon that. And especially if it's a guy in the third round where it's like, yeah, it's not like, it's an important pick, but it's also not like you're using a first rounder here.
And I think like we talk about like best case scenarios. For me, it would be Drake May one. The top of the second, it would be one of those left tackles falls, a Tyler Guyton, whatever, kid from BYU, Kingsley Suamatia. But then what you did in your mock draft, you trade, right? You trade back into the second round
Second round,
with
yep.
a receiver. Honestly, I think that's what the Patriots should do. I think they should, if they could land a left tackle, the second pick in the second round, trade back into the second round using their top of the third and get a receiver. Honestly, bam, 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 dude. You land your receiver, your tackle, and your quarterback in the first two rounds. Best case scenario right there, Chris.
Yeah, it's tough just because like ultimately then you're gonna have to like trade some picks to I think they want to like amass a ton, right? And you
Yeah.
don't really want to be giving futures away, but ultimately I think this draft is pretty top heavy, and I think it makes a lot of sense to jump back up into the second round, make three picks in the first two rounds, go from there and have your kind of three guys to move forward with.
I agree, man. I think we agree.
All right. Thanks for following along, guys. We'll catch you further on down the trail.